Hi guys and welcome back to Unstop Unhinged. Today we are going to be sharing the solutions for the weekly coding challenge number 37. So let's quickly get into it.
Hello everyone, today we are going to solve another question from Aristotle practice, that is modular gear synchronization. The problem statement is, in a giant underground mechanical vault, n gears rotate in isolation. Each gear completes one full rotation after a certain number of seconds. However, these gears are defective. Each gear only rotates after every multiple of its delay time and skips its next take if it coincides with any of its forbidden ticks. For each gear I, it rotates every AI seconds. However, it must skip any time t such that t mod fi is equals to 0. Your task is to determine the earlier time t greater than 0 where all gears rotate simultaneously. If there is no possible time where all gears can rotate together, print -1. So let's understand via this question. And if we see the input format is first integer n that shows the number of gears, and then we have per line AI and Fi for each gear. So we have three gears, and these are the values. So first we find what is the LCM of first values. The first values over here denote AI. And what is AI? It's the number of volts, right? So I can't find it here, but we'll first find what is the LCM of the first digits, AI. So LCM of 4, 6, and 8 is what? If we try to find the LCM of this, we can use two ways. STL method that just uses method that just uses LCM, STD LCM, and then we can write two numbers, example A and B. Or if we don't have that, like in this question, we only use G++ 7.3, which is less than the 17th version. So we can't implement this. So we will use the other formula, that is the actual formula to find LCM of two numbers, example A and B. It is A into B, and then we will find greatest common divisor of A and B. Okay, so this is the way that we are going to find the LCM of this list of numbers. So the list LCM of 4, 6, and 8 is going to be 24 because 4 and 8 together give only 4 because they have a common divisor that is 4, and then we have 6. So 4 into 6 is going to give us 24. Now we are checking, is 24 divisible by any of the values on the right side? That is 24 divisible by any value on the right? And what are the values on the right? That are 6, 9, 10. So 24, whether is it divisible by 6? Yes, it is. So 24 mod 6 gives us 0. So because of that, the answer over here is going to be -1. And if we see, so if we have got -1 once, we are not going to check other values, and we're just going to return -1 in this case. So if you see, answer is going to be -1. Now let's check for this. So in this case, what is the LCM of 3 and 5? They don't have anything in common, so the LCM is going to be 15. Now we have to see, is 15 divisible by either 2 or 4? Is it? It's not. The answer is not going to be 0. So the answer in this case is going to be our LCM, that is 15. Correct? So now you must have understood the approach that first step is to find LCM of AI values, then check if right value, if LCM I right value is equals to 0, then return -1, or else return LCM. Okay, so let's just check out the code for this. First, we are finding the LCM. So to find this LCM, we know the formula to find LCM is A into B and greatest common divisor of A and B. So first we are finding the greatest common divisor, then we are finding the LCM, and using this formula of pairs, we are iterating over the whole array and checking the LCM of the whole array, that is the left part. So here we have found the LCM. Now we are checking if LCM is divisible. The mod gives us 0, then return -1, or else return LCM. So I'll just run this code to see if it's working or not. And it's running. Let's try to submit it. That's correct. So this is the answer for this question, and I hope you understood it. Hello everyone, today we are going to solve another question from One Stop Practice, that is the ticking memory trap. The problem statement is you are managing a highly sensitive and time critical memory vault in a top security research facility. Each memory slot holds a value and the entire array of memory slots can be modified or queried. The vault has a special property. It supports version states of the memory. Each time a modification update is made, a new version is created without destroying the previous one. You are given an initial array of n memory slots. A query of q operations, each either updates a slot in a specific version, queries the sum in a range in a specific version. All memory versions are immutable once created. You can only update on top of an existing version to make a new one. Your task is to support these operations efficiently, handling up to 10 to the power 5 operations. So let's understand the input format as well. Now the first line contains two integers, n and q, the size of the array and the number of queries respectively. The second line contains n integers where ith integer represents the initial value at index I in the array. Each of the next q queries contain a query in the following two formats. IV, 1v, ix creates a new version by updating index I to value x in version v, and 2vlr in version v query some of the elements from index L to R, both inclusive, one based. Okay, so let's understand why this example first, because this is a complicated question. So firstly, we have 4 is the value that we have second, the number of the size of the array. Okay, so this is 4 is the size of the array and 7 is the number of queries. And this is the initial version 1 array. So this is our version 1. Okay. So first of all, we are given the query this 2124. Now what does 2 means? 2 means that we have to add the values from value 2 to value 4 in our array, that is version 1. So this is our version 1 array, right? We need to add the values from I'm going to add small indexes 2, 3, 4. So we need to add the values from 6 to 12. The answer is going to be for query 1. The answer is going to be 6 plus 9 plus 12, and that is what? I think it's going to be, let me check. It's going to be 27. Say 9, 10, 11. Yeah, it's going to be 27. Now, what does the next one tells us to do? Query 2 tells us that we have to update in this one because we are given 1 initially. Now, where do we have to update? In query 1, in version 1 itself. And we have to update, we have to change value 2 to value 10. Okay, we have to change this value to value 10. So now our array is going to look like 3, 10, 9 and 12. And this is going to be our version 2. Now what does query 3 tells us to do? Now query 3 says that we have to update again. Now update where? In version 2 this time. And we have to change 3 to 5. So we have to change 9 to 5. So this is now going to look as this. And this will be version 3. Now we have query 4. Now query 4 tells us 2313. Now 23 means 2 means we have to add this time. 3 means that we have to add in version 3 and we have to add from 1 to 3. 1, 2, 3. So this is going to be 3 plus 10 plus 5. This is what? 18. So the answer is going to be 18 in this. Now query 5 tells us what? So we did which one? I had to add, right? So I think we did this. Yeah, we did this. Now again we have to add. But now this time we have to add in version 2, which is this one. And we add from 2 to 4. So 1, 2, 10 plus 9 plus 12. I hope I'm not wrong. 10 plus 9 plus 12. Right? So this is going to be 31. Now our query 6 tells us what? So we have done this, we have done this. Query 6 tells us that we have to again add. Now this time we have to add in version 1, which is this one. And we have to add from 1 to 2. That means 3 plus 6, which is 9. And then last we have query 7. This time we have to add again in version 1 from 1 to 4. So 3 plus 6 plus 9 plus 12. So this is going to be 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 30. I hope I'm right. So let's check the answer. We got, after addition, we got the values are 27, 18, 31, 9, and 30. So the answer is 27, 18, 31, 9, 30. 27, 18, 31, 9, 30. Correct? This is what we did, and this is going to be our answer. Now, this is a bit complicated. So in order to store the values, because once we have a new array, new version array, we don't want that the old version vanishes. Because even after finding 3, we are also performing operations on 1 and still performing operations on 2. So we still want that the old array persists in our question. But if we keep a track of the old array, this is going to make our space extremely inefficient, right? Because we are just adding up to the stack space. So what the concept that we are going to use in this is going to be a persistent segment tree. Now what this tree does is that it stores the additive sum of the whole array. And after we have updated an array, it changes the value that has been updated, but the value that remains same is still going to be same. So for that, we're going to use the shared space. Now I'll show this to you via an example. So for the first part, what is the sum of all the values in this? It's 30, right? It's 30. Now if we see, this 30 is made up by two subarrays, 3 and 6 and 9 and 12. So sum of 3 and 6 is 9 and sum of 9 and 12 is 21. 21. Now again, these are made up of two arrays themselves, two values, sorry, not arrays. So 9 is made up of 3 and 6, and this is made up of 9 and 12. This is made up of 3, 6, this is made of 9 and 12. Now you see, this is this segment tree of our version 1 array. Now when we made a change in this, so the version 2 became this. Now what is the sum of version 2? It's 3 plus 10 plus 9 plus 12. So we changed 6 by 10, right? We added 4 values. So the now sum has become 34, right? Now it is indeed made of two values, just like the older one. Now those two values are, in this case, it's 3 and 10, 13 on one side, and 9 and 12, 21 on the other side. So, wait a second. You will be able to see that only this part is updated. This part still remains the same. When I draw the further array, 13 is made using 3 and 10. Three, 10, 9 and 12. Now when you see that only this part of the array is the one that saw change, this still remained the same as this one. So what do we mean by this is that, okay, so it's not visible properly. I'll just use this. So this means that for this part, we are going to add new address. But this is going to use the same shared address as version 1 because this did not see any change. The values 21, 9, 12, all are same here. Only this was the version that was updated because of the new update. So this is the one that we'll save as the new address, but this is going to store the shared value of this. And via this, we are going to make changes only to the ones that see the change, and the other values in our new version is still going to be the same. So let's check out the code for this. First of all, we made a whole structure to store our values, and the version 1 was built in our array because we wanted to store what are the values in this, because this is the one that is going to be the sole copy, and we are going to derive persistent trees from it. So that is why it is a persistent segment trees, because one main tree, and then we are persistently using different values to implement changes on it. So when we find an update function, we make a new value and then we update in our persistent tree using that. And when we want to find the sum, we find the sum using that and we just return the sum in our query. So this is what's happening in our code. I'll just compile it once and let's submit this code. This is correct. But again, I'll say that before understanding the code, it's a bit complicated. You need to be aware of the topic segment trees and understand how this whole theory works. If you have understood this, try to implement this on a notebook and then you'll be able to write a code on your own. Okay, so I hope you understood it. Hello everyone. Today we are going to solve another question from Unstopped Practice, that is machinery fault chain reaction. The problem statement is, in an automated industrial plant, there are n machines, each connected via dependency circuits. If one machine malfunctions, it may trigger malfunctions in dependent machine, but only if the malfunction propagates through an active dependency. You are given a list of machine connections forming a directed graph where an edge from machine A to B means if A fails and the edge is active, it can cause B to fail. The machines are grouped into n disjoint clusters. Machine in the same cluster shares a circuit fuse, so if one machine fails, the fuse trips all the machines in that cluster instantly. Initially, no machine is faulty. You are given q fault events, each declaring a machine that malfunctions. After each event, simulate the entire chain reaction of fault triggers by dependencies and fuses. After each fault, report the number of newly malfunctioned machines, excluding those already filled with previous events. So first line contains three integers, n, m, e, representing the number of machines, the number of clusters, and the number of dependency edges respectively. Second line, n, contains the ith integer, ci, representing the cluster id, I based in the integer I to m of the ith machine, 1 to m. Each of the next e lines contain two integers, u and v, representing the directed dependency edge from machine u to v. Now let's see the example for this test case. Okay, so firstly, we see that we have 8 machines and we have 3 clusters and we have 7 dependencies on it. And this is our cluster configuration. So if we see via this, we have 3 clusters, right? We have cluster 1 that has the values 1 and 2. Then we have cluster 2 that has the value 3, 4, 5. And then we have cluster 3 that has the value 6, 7, 8. 6, 7, 8. Okay. So now what we need to do, that we need to also check the values of the dependencies. So if we see, we have one. Oh, just going to delete this. Yeah. So firstly we have 1 and that is connected to 3 and then that is connected to 3 and they are connected like this. Now we have 2 to 4. So let's go with that. Firstly we can make the node. We have 4 over here. I have 2 connected to 4. Now we have 3 connected to 5. 4 connected to 6. So I'll just have another one over here. And if this is 6, we have our 4 connected to it via this. Now we have 5 connected to 6. So 5 is connected to 6. Now we have 6 connected to 7. So I have another one. 7 and 6 is connected to 7. Now I have 7 connected to 8. Okay, so this is the whole connection graph, that how it looks. So we have two queries. So firstly, we are given what if the first one fails. So if one fails, then cluster 1 fails altogether. So we'll say that cluster 1 fails. So how many fail in that? 1 and 2. So we have two values over here. Now we see how they are connected to each other. So 1 is connected to 3. So because of that, 3 will also fail. So because 1 fails, so now 3 will fail. And since 3 is failing, I put it. And since 3 is failing, we can say that cluster 2 is also going to fail completely. Cluster 2 fails. So how many values are there in cluster 2? 3. So 3 values are failing over here. Now what is 3 connected to? 3 is connected to 5. 5 is again in cluster 2. This is failing altogether. 5 is connected to 6. Now 6 is also going to fail because of this. So now our 6 will fail. Now since 6 is going to fail, 6 is a part of cluster 3. So cluster 3 will also fail completely. So now we can say that cluster 3 fails. And how many values are there in cluster 3? 3. So in all the clusters have failed. And since all clusters have failed, this shows that all the machines have also failed in them. So the total number of machines that have failed is equals to 2 plus 3, which is equals to 8. So answer over here is going to be 8 when we do check for what if machine 1 fails. Now we have to check what if machine 4 fails. But as we see, 4 has already failed because 4 was a part of cluster 2 and cluster 2 has failed completely. So in this case, the total number of machines that have failed is going to be 0 because it has already failed. So the answer will be 8 and 0. 8 and 0. This is correct. Okay, so you've understood what the question means. So for this question, it is going to be a little bit complicated. Firstly, we are going to map machines to clusters. Okay, because we are given cluster over here in this form and we need to map what are the machines that are undergoing in this. Because we know if the value is same, then the machines will be in the same respective cluster. So firstly we do that, then we make the adjacency list to store dependencies. Dependencies, okay. Now the third part is we are now going to check, let's see from the code, we are going to maintain two variables, that is the count of machine failed and the count of cluster failed. So maintain two vectors, machine failed and cluster failed. So you can know that machine failed is going to store all the machines from 1 to 8 and cluster failed will only take three values 1, 2 and 3 because these are the only three clusters that we have. Now we are going to start from a query, that is query of fail. Now we'll check if cluster has already failed, return 0. Okay, and if not, then mark that cluster has failed and push all the machines of cluster in a queue data structure. And after we have pushed them in a queue data structure, we are going to pop them or simply implement BFS on the queue structure and check for each machine one by one over here. And side by side, keep implementing the count for it. So let's check the code. We have understood the whole approach, how it's going to work, and let's see the code for it. Firstly, we have marked all the clusters to its machine, that which cluster has which machine. After that, we have made an adjacency list that is going to store the dependencies. Then we are making two vectors of Boolean that is going to store whether the machine has failed or not and whether the cluster has failed or not. Now we are checking for each query that whether our cluster has already failed or not. If it has already failed, then just return 0. And if it has not failed already, then use a queue and push all the machines of that unfailed cluster into our queue. Now, while we traverse our queue, we want to store those values of machine in a data structure so that we can find the count at the end, right? So this is what we are using it for. Now we are just iterating over that queue over here and checking all its dependencies and seeing if they have failed or not. If not, then mark their cluster as failed and push the values in our queue again. And repeat this process till the time all values are traversed. And at the end, just return the newly failed machine size because this stores all the machines that just failed because of the given value. Okay, so at the end, just return this and let's try to run this code. and this runs fine. Let's try to submit it. So this is the correct answer. So I hope you understood the whole approach and how to code it up. And thank you for watching, everyone.
And that's that. I hope this video was super helpful for you. And don't forget, tomorrow's weekly coding challenge goes live at 11 a.m. in the morning. So quickly go in the link given below and register for it. All the best and stay tuned for many more such pieces of content that are super useful and valuable for you. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe.